I hope the intricate details that I'll discuss in this video will enable you to have even more of those aha moments. And I hope you're able to gain an even greater depth, a greater panoramic view of your situation, so you can feel compassion for yourself, because we don't know what we don't know. I certainly didn't know that I was part of a system that was designed to make me think, believe, feel, and behave in certain ways that would allow dysfunction to continue. So I hope the following insights can give you more clarity about your particular family situation, and I truly hope that this can help set you free, because ignorance is not bliss and confusion is stifling. I think it's important to remember to be realistic, that there probably is some degree of dysfunction in most families. But at what point does dysfunctional behaviour become dangerous to our mental health, physical well-being, personal safety? It's difficult to ignore the statistics on acts of violence and abuse, and how most victims actually know their abuser. Within a dysfunctional family, there is conflict, misconduct, child neglect and abuse, and it occurs repeatedly and continuously. It's also where other family members accommodate or enable this dysfunctional behaviour to continue, either knowingly or unknowingly. But the most disturbing sign of being raised in a dysfunctional family is that you were actually made to believe that this was normal. You eventually accept being neglected, abused, and abandoned. You become accustomed to hostility or violence and your basic needs not being met. All of this is normalized. You may even recall yourself defending, justifying, or protecting a person who was abusing you. And this is part of the dysfunctional family's programming. So all the unpleasantries remain behind closed doors. Deep down, you may have felt something was missing. You felt an aching emptiness, a deep void, but you never had words for it. You may have observed other families and noticed how they seemed at ease, affectionate, welcoming. Perhaps you were embarrassed or scared to invite a school friend over to your house because the environment was so unpredictable. And on that rare occasion where you had the courage to perhaps ask, why is there so much pain in our family? It would have been implied that this is the way things have always been. Or you're often convinced that your perception is wrong. So there's a lot of denial and distortion of truth. And this is where we begin to mistrust our reality. It's no wonder that so many children in dysfunctional families often question whether they've been adopted. You're often made to feel like there's not enough love to go around. You have to compete or do things to gain love, approval, and attention. So the love in dysfunctional families is conditional. You must do this or we won't love you. Whereas in functional families, parents love their children unconditionally. They may disagree with your decision and not be happy with your choice. However, their love will never be withdrawn. So in functional families, there's a consistency and a predictability which makes you feel safe and allows you to develop and explore who you are as an individual. Conflict is never resolved, but is continuously perpetuated. Grudges are held between members, and oftentimes you have to take sides, and there's a lot of non-verbal and indirect hostility expressed. And dysfunctional families are filled with addictions, secrets, lots of disturbing skeletons in the closet, which nobody is allowed to discuss. They live by certain rules, which nobody dares to question, such as silence is golden, blood is thicker than water. And if you're a baby boomer, you may have been told that children are seen and not heard. In dysfunctional families, it's important to continuously play a role because it's all about how your behaviour reflects on the family. So it's more about preserving the family's reputation, public persona, rather than understanding, supporting, and helping the individual members. You must learn to keep quiet, obey rules, ignore your gut instincts, suppress your emotions, disregard your needs, disregard your intuition, turn a blind eye to abuse, cruelty, and neglect, bite your lip, smile, and be polite. And if you have a strong sense of right and wrong, if you find it absolutely unbearable to tolerate injustice or hypocrisy or betrayal, you're going to have problems blending in. All the characteristics that make you a truth teller, a person with morals, empathy, compassion, integrity, these characteristics are bad news for a dysfunctional family. And you will be punished for being born with these characteristics, or even showing interest in trying to become a better human being. You won't be encouraged. In fact, you'll be programmed to believe that there's something wrong with you if you don't conform. If you do ask questions, if you're not loyal to this dysfunctional way of doing things, staying in this dysfunctional family will erode your confidence and self-esteem. You will believe that you're stupid, crazy, inept, that you're selfish if you need some distance. We often forget the effects of the environment that we grew up in on our developing sense of self-worth. For example, in a functional family, your curiosity is considered a blessing, whereas in a dysfunctional family, it's considered a curse. In a functional family, your sensitivity is considered as a gift, whereas in a dysfunctional family, it's more of a nuisance. So please remember to consider the impact that the health of your environment has had on you and what you believe about yourself. In a dysfunctional family, there's no connection, no understanding, no closeness or feelings of safety, of being nurtured or valued. And if you have vague memories of random incidents like this, it still felt disingenuous, insincere, and fake. We often spend a lifetime wondering whether we were loved at all. The purpose of family is to lovingly guide you, not control you, to advise you, not coerce you and manipulate you. In a dysfunctional family, you can't be you. Your only purpose and the only way to survive is to play a role. And everyone plays a role. And those roles are interchangeable. There's the role of the golden child who can do no wrong. There's the scapegoat that is blamed for everything that does go wrong. There's the invisible child who's often forgotten and blends into the background. There's the hero who's overly responsible, that gets straight A's, whose job is to make the parents and the family look good. There's the chief enabler, who is usually the other parent who's passive and turns a blind eye. And there's also the mascot, who uses humor to divert from the pain. The parent or parents are not emotionally attuned to their children, and dysfunctional families are filled with emotional neglect. There may be drug and alcohol abuse, and even physical abuse. There's a general lack of empathy, lots of denial, no boundaries, and impossible standards to meet. And codependency is mistaken for intimacy. Dysfunctional families are like mini cults. It kind of feels like imprisonment. You're not there by choice. You're there because of obligation and duty. Your life is not about what you want to do, but what you have to do. Members are trauma bonded, which is why we struggle to break free from people that we know are unloving and dangerous. You know they're bad for you, but you still long to make things better. They could be alcoholic, drug addicted, have a mental illness, or narcopathic. The dangerous part is that they do not see a problem with their behaviour and they do not seek external help. You'll never hear an admission of wrongdoing, and it's rare that you'll see anyone being held accountable. Abused children develop trauma bonds to their abusive parents and siblings. And narcissistic parents are the most neglectful. They make terrible parents because they themselves are developmentally stunted. They often react like toddlers, and they behave like martyrs. Narcissistic parents won't miss an opportunity to tell you how much they sacrificed and everything they gave up for you. They act or imply that they've done you a great favor in providing for your basic needs. So you basically feel guilty for existing and that you owe them your life. And as an adult, you may not realize this is the reason why you often feel like a burden and constantly ask for permission. Because in childhood, you had to jump through hoops to get your parents' love. There's no denying that this felt more like a transaction rather than love. If you turn to your family and you need help with a problem, they seem to thrive on seeing you suffer and struggle. You get the impression that they enjoy seeing you fail because they genuinely can't be happy for you. So you feel awkward about expressing any joy, any success, or talk about any of your dreams or goals. There's very little encouragement, but there's mostly reminders of why you shouldn't be doing something, why your ideas will fail, and this is how they plant seeds of doubt and worthlessness instead of support and encouragement. You will feel insane around these people. Because after family get-togethers, which you generally don't want to attend, and make up excuses in your head 3 months before the event, the reason why you do that is because on some level you recognize the pattern that this is not a safe environment for you. Because you keep remembering after every family get-together that your self-esteem actually gets smaller. You feel worse. You often end up in tears or having a panic attack. And you suffer an emotional hangover for a few days or weeks afterwards because you need to recover from the chaos, the drama, and the conflicts. You begin to recognize and feel apprehensive of any engagement because it becomes a risk to your mental health. A dysfunctional family is a closed system, which means there's no place for feedback. You can't tell them how you feel or what's wrong. Even though everyone's preoccupied with fault finding, blaming, and shaming, if you give feedback that there's something that you don't like, or if you prefer things to be different, you will be made out to be the problem. Giving feedback about how things are done is almost blasphemous. Intimidation, guilt, and shame is used to silence you. Defensive comments such as, "You don't know how good you've got it," or "You should be grateful," are frequently used by authoritarian caregivers to ensure that no change occurs. So there is a zero possibility of change occurring within a closed system. There can be no growth because no feedback is taken. And every family has some degree of dysfunction. Some things can be healed, but you also need to identify those things that can't be healed. And this raises a question: how severe does a dysfunction have to be in order for you to cut ties? Well, that depends on how you feel, the effect that this has had on you. No family is perfect, and we can't define things in such a black and white manner because that is not reality. But abuse is abuse. Being family does not excuse the person from acting abusively. And if the effects are so detrimental that it's costing you your mental health, your physical well-being, then perhaps it's time to reassess, set some limits. Please also remember that as you heal, your perspectives will change and things are never set in stone. But you also need to know what your deal breakers are, what you're not willing to tolerate or sacrifice in order to remain true to yourself. Please remember that members of a dysfunctional family are part of a dysfunctional system. What we're talking about is transgenerational. So blaming one person who hurt you, who was reenacting a role, will just increase the suffering. But by recognizing this pattern of behavior, you can disengage. Most of humanity has had their fair share of trauma. Some of these painful experiences can destroy you or they can make you stronger, but the choice is yours. Many of the people who we are inspired by have had horrible histories that they've somehow transmuted, turned lemons into lemonade. Ask yourself, what good came from these experiences? Am I a better observer? Do I have more resilience? Does it inspire me to be a better parent? These are much more valuable questions to ask yourself, as opposed to the initial question of why did this happen to me? Instead of why, focus on what you can do from this point on. What can you now do with the strength and the knowledge that you've gained? The most empowering thing that you can do is continue working on yourself, healing your wounds, because that in itself will interrupt the pattern. Healing means liberating ourselves from our past, from these unconscious ways of remaining in a repetitive trance-like state. And this information is not about blaming, but empowering yourself with knowledge so you can make better choices in your own life today. And I highly recommend having a look at the work of John Bradshaw and Dr. Jonas Webb. Please feel free to leave your comments below about this topic. And as always, I really appreciate your input because it's a great opportunity to share your wisdom. And if this video has helped you clarify your situation, please share it with others who you feel could benefit from this information.